So, the Nine of Swords. This card pictures a woman troubled and in distress. She's got things hanging over her, which are those Nine of Swords. And in this darkened room, the 9 swords hang on the wall over the left side of the bed, showing that they are impacting her mental state. This leads to her thoughts, fears, and expectations, and some sorrows being tempered by understanding the emotions or the wisdom of her thoughts. The hilts, which is the handle of the swords, form an interlocking pattern, a neat pattern behind her. Her past is firmly set in order within her mind and feeling unescapable. And everything is blocking her from clearing her thoughts. 3 of the swords are in line with her body. If we look, one's passing behind her heart, which is triggering emotional pain, causing her to reflect with worry over her losses. There's another one lining up with her throat, showing worry over words and communication. It's the swords, and all things that have been said or unsaid. There's one passing above her head, which represents her mind and concerns specific thoughts, opinions, beliefs, and bringing a lot of mental anguish. Hi everyone, I'm Tarot with AnneMarie, and I have a strategy to put tarot together. And it's often overlooked, the systems of actually using spreads or understanding the basic concept of what each card means. Now, I've created a system focusing on card pairings, but tonight we're doing the single card, and I use a unique spread for a much more profound reading. Stick with me and you'll find out more about that. And if you're ready to add a strategy to your tarot practice, you're in the right place. Tonight, this is my Learn One Tarot Card series, which is a series we've been going since October and we'll be going until next May, would you believe? And it's all about this approach that I use. And today we are starting by uncovering the secrets within the 9 of Swords. So if you want to check out any more, check out my complete minute courses on my website, tarotwithanemarie.com. Her mind is being tortured by what might happen when or if those swords come crashing down. And if there ever need be to use what's happened and how things have panned out for her in the past. Her grey nightgown suggests her vulnerability, but there is sincerity in seeking peace and a deep desire to rest. Yet she's plagued by her mind, which stops her from recharging, leaving her full of anxiety as she contemplates her fate. In the original image of the 9 of Swords, her hair is blonde. If it's blonde, it can show that there's a need to be rescued from naivety and feelings that she cannot cope. The grey is obviously the opposite, and it's a sign of maturity, not naivety. And so there's wisdom, but this wisdom is not felt at this particular place or time for Our Lady. The grey hair shows that her worry is very intense, leaving her disconnected from her wisdom. And the weight of the swords hanging over her is full of words, actions, beliefs, and attitudes. She's fearful, and she feels that things are under threat. The weight of the swords are hanging over her head, and this connects to it being full of communication and full of words, actions, beliefs, and attitudes. She is fearful of the perceived threat. She may believe that due to her experience that she should and must know the answers, yet she's struggling to find the ones that she needs. There's a lot of old wounds that needs healing here, and it's still haunting this figure in our 9 of Swords card. And this places an extra burden on her already overstretched mind, leaving her facing the new day with confusion and the last day still wearing her down. And she sits in scrutiny of herself and her insecurities. So she's sitting in bed where we're meant to be resting, and the subconscious mind is trying to work through the issues. But that's normally what we do, isn't it? Instead, look at her. She's bolt upright, head in her hands, full of despair. Her mind's racing, churning, busy and unable to shut off, as she worries about worry, either projecting her fears onto the future or going over something that's already happened. Her pillow is a beige neutral colour, so it's a safe place for her to rest. Her mind is trying to sleep and find a new order to her thoughts by shutting them out for a while, but in her current state, that's not available to her. So this is leaving her tired and stressed, and she does not see things clearly as her mind turns the shadows of the swords into the dark room, into this mental torment and overthinking. Look at her mattress, it's very thin. That shows a lack of comfort. So there's nothing to soothe her or comfort her mind or her body when she's lying down, as she might feel that hardness of that bed that's beneath her. If we look at the bed, we can see a carving. Two people are fighting. That below her, it's showing that she's concerned with both the intellectual and the emotional confrontations, and maybe even physical ones. And below where her head would lie, she's trying to sleep on and try and get the issues to see them more clearly. So she's trying to sleep on it. She can't sleep. And so what she wants is clarity and to gain an understanding. Yet this scene shows one person being defeated by another with a sword, bringing the total number of swords in this card to 10. So look at that scene below in the bed, the carving. So in actual fact, although we've got 9 swords below, to the left of our figure, we've also got the carving showing an extra sword. Interesting. 9 as a number is about wishes, completion, almost completion, and wanting to resolve any leftover issues. So the carving is showing that we've got this balance, and this can show that her mind is focused or triggered by things that have happened a long time ago or have passed ages ago. So this is echoed by the bed itself, because remember, it's wooden. It looks like a wooden chest, doesn't it? And it's like a blanket box, a place where we put our keepsakes or our memories, and she's lying on top of it. And within these memories are events that probably years. Swords is very open timing. There you go, giving away something of how you can actually calculate timing. With swords, in a system that I teach, it's open. There is no timing. Sleeping on her past situations will cause future to be blighted by fear that get out of hand. And that's all being created by events that have long gone or gone by. Look at the bedspread. The design features red roses and the signs of the zodiac. And the red roses have got a yellow background, and that symbolises a desire for growth, change, and movement, and to go within, just like the magician. She wishes to be grounded and creative enough to find her way forwards and for her feeling to be allowed to grow. She perhaps needs to lie down and cover herself and gain the energy that she would gain from laying down and covering herself would help her find some calmness. And yet this bedspread that's mixed with the zodiac symbols against a blue ground represent sense of something being fatal that's covering. If she lays down and covers herself, it'll make her feel pinned down by all her worries even more. So that's what that covering is all about. So she's thrown it off, and now she's sitting overwhelmed and concerned about maybe what dreams or night terrors been in her mind. But even before she sat up, it's weighing on her legs, stopping her from walking away from her concerns. In her worry, she needs to relinquish her control and to let her destiny start to play out and do its bidding. And fate will resolve her problems, even though it's only built up in her mind. The passage of time can be linked to her problem, as the 12 zodiac signs can be linked to the times that's gone by, or even to projections of or fears of times that are yet to come. The zodiac represents all the personalities, of course, so her worry might be about the welfare, actions, or beliefs of others, or how she can help avoid or heal from her connections to others. And this leaves her with a big worry, not just about herself, but also about the bigger picture in her life. When the morning light comes, it'll illuminate the room, and she may see that the shadows are gone and that her fears are not founded. Yet that alone might not be enough, as she will see harsh swords. There are truths and fears hanging on top of her. Often we can look at this as the worry card, sleep's being factored when we see the arrival of this card. Yet it shows that you're feeling isolated and consumed by thoughts that make life a living nightmare. And fears are often not founded, but exaggerated by a complete lack of clarity, leaving us filled with anxiety, hopelessness, no escape from an issue because it's affecting us psychologically. Number 9 in is inspiration, honesty, and understanding. Worry, and a bit more worry, isn't it, this card? So there'll be anxieties and concerns over a situation, yet the fear and anxiety won't be the result. It never is. It's just what we're feeling. And sleep might be lost, and that means it's a loss of focus, and that's when things start to go wrong, or can go wrong, should I say. While you project your fears onto a situation, time is lost, and it's unnecessary, isn't it? In this world of sorrow and despair and angst. It's a card of trying to let your worries go, because the results would be much better than you actually think. When this card comes up, the Nine of Swords is bringing upset, doubt, and endless worry. And there are feelings of concern, hopelessness, anxious, to do with past, the present, or sometimes the future situation. The mind is awash with doubt. And past events can go round and round in our mind, replaying tiny, small details and analysing the events, and sometimes filling us with guilt, regret at the actions taken, or of course not taken. Yet the future of a forthcoming event can be shown, and that's, we're looking at it with a pessimistic frame of mind, as it were, because we're worrying about things that can go wrong. We'll do it. Nerves can rattle you as you face something with crossed fingers, hoping for luck to be on your side. Maybe it's something like, I used to look at this card when I was training, was a driving instructor, and always spoke to me about pupils that were saying, oh, I don't want to take this driving test, I'm so scared. And I used to say to them, you know what? I totally get it, and I know how much you want to, but you can take it again. It's not like one strike and you're out. You can keep going until you get out. Why are you putting yourself under this pressure? I had no reason to know why. We just don't. Most people are like that. I don't want to take the exam. I don't want to take the test. I would look at this as the fear of the 11th hour. You can't wait to go for that exam because you're hoping to qualify and that's going to change. You're not going to be studying. And then you get to this point where you go, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to admit that it may go wrong. It's because we think, I just want it to stop and for it to be over. And that's perhaps why I always say to people, it's like the 11th hour. It really is. So there's a real fear where we concern ourselves with the situation and we just bring this confusion in. And then we hope to cope when it arrives, don't we? It can leave us feeling very helpless in the face of an oncoming disaster. And that might be real or imagined. Sometimes this card can imply that we are making a mountain out of a molehill. This is definitely a card of bringing in the sleepless nights and show sleep issues. As apprehension is setting in, and the once logical swords are now found seated deep in our emotion. The Nine of Swords indicates that while the thoughts and fears intrude upon our lives, it can affect us on many different levels, and that the worry is probably uncalled for. So whatever irrational fears you're being subjected to is probably far worse than the actual reality of the outcome that's ahead of you. The bad things you think will happen will probably not occur or will be much easier than you think. This can be about old trauma, which can represent itself, issues buried deep down, things that are trying to come up from the past, showing all sorts of different difficulties or abuse that's affected us on a mental level. And that can leave us feeling quite haunted by the past. This is a couple more keywords for you. The 11th hour, anxiety, worry, fear, depression, nightmares, inner turmoil, deep-seated fears, secret, and also releasing worry. We've got a Nine of Swords showing this woman sitting in bed with her head in her hands, and she appears to have been jolted away from some sort of terrible nightmare that's left her disturbed. And she's scared and anxious. And so those 9 swords that's hanging on that dark wall behind represent her negative thinking. And that's now everything that's weighing really heavily on her mind. And again, look at the base of that bed. It's a carving as if she's laying on a box. But that carving is of one person defeating another. And the roses and the outlines, the astrological symbols adorn that quilt that's wrapped around her. This is the card that suggests that dark thoughts are disturbing your feelings and weighing down upon you and keeping you up at night. Perhaps we're worrying excessively about the situation and negative thoughts are getting the better of us and leaving us feeling very stressed and anxious. And the more we associate with fear, the more it rules our lives. We can become obsessed because we're going over what's not working and we become more and more anxious. And of course, then we're depleting ourselves in health matters. If we are overthinking, we're probably not resting. If we're not resting, we're probably not nurturing ourselves. And so it goes on. And we become much more anxious with worry, and things are more likely to go wrong because we've not had our rest and we're not thinking logically. We're not our healthiest, are we? My website, because this is where you can find a little bit of help if you are looking to actually take your tarot level further than many courses. This is my web page, website. Just on the top there, Tarot with AnneMarie. And there's the courses. Now, Tuesday nights, when we're doing tarot twists, I'm showing you how to do pair, which is my signature method. And if you've missed that, do tune in, subscribe, and then you'll be notified. Use a method of pairing and fusing your cards. So I'm already giving you an awful lot of help by saying that's the method. And it can really change the anxiety of what do I say about that card, because you've got two. That then leads to the course, the intermediate course, which is part 1. Okay. And you can take it even further. And by the way, there are all the beginners courses or intermediate. I've done the court cards separately, swords, you name it, whatever you want to do. But the method that I'm steering you towards of how to be a professional reader, you want the intermediate and the advanced. But if you don't know your cards, go back. And many courses are there. Select what you want. So that's intermediate part 1, and this is my signature course, part 2, and this is the advanced, all right? Now, what you're going to end up getting to be able to do, and this is all video-based, and then you've got the support here on Tuesday and Thursday with me, is you're going to end up looking, if you want to go to advanced, you'll be looking at a spread just like you see here. And that is how many cards I use for a 5-minute reading or a 5.5-hour reading. And yes, I do those. Saturday was 6, one person. Yeah, that's why I need all those cards. And you might go, I'm not going to share that with you because that's their business. But people have a lot of questions when they are responsible for a variety of people and things. And they want that impartial advice that comes from this method. If you are obsessing in a Nine of Swords about things that aren't working, you're making yourself much more anxious. And then you become what it is. You're an anxious person then, because it becomes a negative cycle. Because one awful thing starts happening, and then it leads to another and another. And then it overwhelms us. So the 9 of Swords are stacked up against each other, aren't they, over that wall? And so are those negative thought patterns. So the fear and worry in the 9 of Swords can often be a self-fulfilling prophecy. My point being, if you tell everybody that's what's going to happen, like attracts like. More to the point, if you are laying awake worrying about everything that's actually going on, you're probably not at your best. And then you're clumsy or you're tired, you're not able to concentrate. And that's when things start getting out of hand because it's affecting you. On that mental level, you're deprived of sleep, you're not sharp. It can just be a whole thing that starts like that. Then you become oversensitive and it's a pattern and it goes on. And we start obsessing, don't we, about even more things that are likely to go wrong. And then we start looking at the worst case scenario because it's just happened. And we start to act in ways that support our negative thoughts. And if we are always stressing about the outcome, the more that anxiety gets pushed into us being very disconnected from other people and wanting to avoid that negativity that's coming along with us. And then we start manifesting what it is that we're worried about. If you're a black cloud and you keep doing that, people are going to go, I can't console you, I don't know what to say to you, and so therefore, perhaps I'll just leave you to it. So the 9 of Swords tells you need to break that cycle. And so when those negative sort of thought patterns start to come up, got to look at taking accountability and start looking at, does it matter? Positive? As soon as I say, if I fail the exam, I have to restudy. Don't want to. But why am I stressed about it? I've done it. I'll get there. I'll get that result. I have to keep going. Inconvenient. Very frustrating. Oh, you're humiliated. That's the ego. So the Nine of Swords reminds us that much of this fear and worry is in our heads. It's not really an accurate reflection of what's happening. Nightmares can actually blow things up for us to feel much worse about things, can't they? And so we might be making things much worse for ourselves by overthinking and going into that worst case scenario. So it's time to examine the situation and get a new perspective when this card comes up. And instead of looking for the evidence of what's going wrong, got to focus on what's gone right. Got to take a deep breath and realize that life is not as dreadful as it seems. And the more we worry, the more we're harming ourselves. The Nine of Swords really crops up where somebody is saying they're not really sleeping well, or maybe they're experiencing some frequent nightmares, or they are concerned about what their dreams mean. So those constant thoughts really can prevent us from looking at what the reality of the situation is. Remember, the swords is about our thinking, and overthinking, overloading doesn't help. And even just looking at the scene, head in hands, the 11th hour worries me, and it's like, sleepless nights about what? You'd be much better off just trying to rest, let your thoughts roll, but very difficult, isn't it, when you're in that position? Okay, I'm going to, got a few more things to say it again, ask if anyone's got any questions, but quite recently I put together everything that we've been doing as a podcast. If you are on YouTube, there it is. And this is the Learn the Tarot podcast, which is the Thursday. Today will be studying one card. Got the Fool, the Magician, High Priestess, have general keys. So you can go back and have a look at each individual card. Great question. Did I say there is a sword in the carving of the bed? Yes. The question was, is there a sword in the carving of the bed? Yes. If we look, we can see, as we look at it, the figure on the right, and you can see that somebody is doing that, and the other person has been defeated. Yeah? I learnt the Nine of Swords is connected to the law of war, and the carving there looks like a war is taking place. It's symbolic of communication. It is. It's war of the mind, because the sword cuts, but the sword is communication, the sword is our thoughts, and there's an overload of thinking going on right here. And so it's the battle. And yeah, you have to really, tarot cards, how many decks are going to show that? They're not, unless the Rider-Waite Smith base. And if you are learning tarot and you're curious about actually knowing what the cards mean, what on the screen is Rider-Waite Smith based deck. And yes, I've got 60 odd decks, and some of them are Rider-Waite decks. Some are not, because they're beautiful and I like them and I use them all. And it's really important that you feel that you're going to get the very best chance of being able to look at your cards. And everyone agrees that it's pretty normal for people to actually encourage a new person to say, why don't you go and look at the Rider-Waite deck, because it's full of symbology and it speaks to you. And once you've actually cracked that, then you're in a position to be able to look further beyond that and maybe spread your wings a little bit and see how you get on. Also, different decks, different people. I've got the Shuffle Tarot deck, very much Rider-Waite based deck, but it's incredibly nuanced and you really have to keep your wits about you, especially when you saw the 44 card spread that I showed you on the screen. Imagine that much information that you can give. And I show you the method and how to do that on the courses. But having that system, you can go, yeah, they want to know about work. They want to know about finance. That's where I go. That's where I go. They want to know what happened last year. That's where I go. They want to know what's coming in 6 months. Yeah, this is how I get 6 months. They want to know about the timing. This is where I get that from. And that's where it all comes in, which is really lovely. 9 of Swords. I think what we forget to say to people is, you don't need to do this on your own. You can get the support of others to help you through the dark periods in our life. We almost have had sleepless nights. And there's me saying, when I was doing my exams, I hate to admit this, but I was that stressed out at school about exams, and I wasn't in the top class for anything really, English and various bits and pieces. But the stress, I ended up in a right old pickle, and I ended up in hospital through stress before my exams. And it's dreadful. And I was only 15, checking my O levels. Yeah. I had melena. I ended up with, I was that stressed, my stomach was bleeding. Shows you, doesn't it, stress at that age. That was a little bit of a wake-up call to pay attention. So you have my entire empathy. Despite this tutorial, I do empathize, suffered myself. So we don't have to do it alone. And others will help us. Seeing the light in this cave is really about seeing the light at the end of the tunnel leads towards a solution and a sense of peace despite our troubles. It's about perspective. That's all it really is. And when we're on our own and just going round and round in our head ourselves, we are struggling to assess the situation because we're plagued by that negative thinking. And we need different perspective, particularly from another party that will help us find our way. If this came up in, let's say, career reading or work and finances, say we're getting worked up about particular issues causing us stress and anxiety, and one of the best things we can say to ourselves, remember, it's just a job. Quite hard when you're self-employed though, isn't it? Even if you've made mistakes at work, the fallout will soon be forgotten, and you'll soon see that things are not as bad as they seem. We can get several rejections, and it's because we're sensitive, we care, and we can get lots of rejection. And so therefore, then we go, gosh, how can I stop that happening? How can I feel better about myself? Especially if we're searching for work. So it's about not letting it get you down. You've got to pick yourself up and try and convince yourself you will get a great job. In finances, we're probably stressing and being distressed about financial status and whether they can sustain the situation and whether the current way of living. And maybe you've lost your job and you're absolutely at the mercy and pressure of everything that needs paying out. It's really a case of trying, instead of worrying, which isn't really going to do anything, you've got to try and start getting a strategy together and try and put things together. That's usually what this card is telling us. Your personality now would be Nine of Cards. And a Nine of Swords personality is somebody that worries. And they're engrossed in the worst case scenario, fretting about what's going to happen and how bad a problem can be. We've all met them. These are the kind of people that may come to you through reading. And they often live in a state of high drama and anxiety and allow the stresses to build, and then they draw others into it. And then they wonder why it's got even worse, because they've got no backup and no friends. So trying to point out that things are not as bad, and you can turn it around, they don't want to hear it. A negative self-perception usually hangs over the Nine of Swords personalities, and they regularly pull themselves down or engage in talking glum self-talk. And you can often hear things like, I'm not good at anything, or I'm a failure. And they keep wanting that reassurance just got to know that don't get sucked into what they're talking about and just try and do the best that you can. In a love reading, it will probably tell us that this person's feeling very anxious and that they've not found someone. And sometimes it's a downward spiral. And so this can be the more that you're worrying about not finding somebody, the more it's actually a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you've got to just break the cycle and try and think positive. We've all been there, and I really feel for people. I'm full of empathy. I totally appreciate how hard it can be. But sometimes that's just very difficult for people to be able to get into that positive mindset and try and break the cycle. But it helps. Perspective from other people helps. That brings us to the end. There is also podcast for the Tuesday, and the Tuesday playlist looks different. We are combining cards, and that's how it looks, and that's where you can find out about that. I do a lot of astrology. We have pet astrology, so you can have a report for your little pooch or whatever, your feathered friends, your fish, whatever. That pet astrology is something that comes up on my website, and you can get a report. There's a lot of articles that I've written. I put a lot of work into that. The reason I've put a lot of work into this is when you've been doing this for years and suddenly go, gosh, yeah, people don't realize that I am constantly reading for animal lovers about their pets. And it occurred to me that while I was learning my astrology and using my software, that I could actually do this. So I did it with my own. Go on and read the blogs about it. It's absolutely fabulous. And it's really nice, especially if you have rescued a pet or you want to know more about them. They're sensitive or their behavior can really help. And yeah, I did it on my two. Here on my two, there's Jack and Jill. They're both Pisces, minutes apart, but very different personalities. And why? Because the degrees of where their planets at the time they were born is very different in their personalities. And yeah, there's another one of mine. There's a Turian mini. And yeah, we had to guess her birthday, but how accurate it came out. I know she was definitely a Turian. I'm just saying that so that you know there's astrology on my site for your pets. And here I am, the hack. And I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. I'll be here on Tuesday with some more tarot, where we'll be looking at the card that we've studied tonight and how to actually blend that and fuse that. Till next time, everybody, I'll play you out as usual. Bye for now.